Well, I've just had 3 minutes on the phone with her. She's going to be joining us now. Grace Knight, live from Sydney Harbour. Good morning and welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Good morning, Two Blokes. How are you?
Very, very good.
Well, thank you, Grace. What a great thrill to chat to you.
Oh, it's lovely to chat to you too. And as you say, it's still sunny at the moment in Sydney. Not for long though, but I'm a Victorian, so it's quite a delight to be right next to the Sydney Harbour. And I don't know if your listeners can hear the waves lapping.
No, we can't, but that's okay. No, what a beautiful part of the world to go. I used to live up in Mossman, and I used to look at that bridge from my apartment for about 12 months, and it's a view you don't get sick of.
Well, aren't you a posh one?
Well,
He
yes,
is, actually.
It sounded impressive, more impressive than it actually was. It was a bit of a slummy place, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. We are here to talk about you because your career has been one that we've all loved going along, and you sort of go away and then you come back, and you go away and come back. Let us go back to, I think, 1976 or thereabouts, where you started your singing career.
Excuse me if my mind's a bit of a bowl of minestrone soup. 1976, that is a long way back.
Isn't it, though? Rob thinks it was halfway through his life, but that's okay. He's a lot older than you and I. You were singing in the UK, is that right?
I was singing in folk clubs, mostly because I was learning to play guitar. My boyfriend was teaching me guitar, and I just kind of sang harmonies alongside him while I was, trying to stretch my fingers to play, an F chord.
They're difficult, aren't they, the F chords? My career in wicket-keeping has stopped me from playing them these days.
Yeah, I gave up the guitar. I was really crap at it. But I really enjoyed the singing.
And then you obviously made your way to Australia. Tell us how that came about.
My sister was a 10-pound pom, and even though, as children, we fought like cat and dog. We really, used to get into fisticuffs with each other, and I used to drive her insane. When she left the UK, I was completely distraught. And so 3 years after she left, she was saying, come to Australia. So I didn't have any money. I had a job, but the prospect of gathering all that money, to get an airfare to Australia was just, that could only be a dream. So I found another way, and I got myself a job, or my boyfriend and I got a job on a ship. And even though we thought we would probably, try to get a waiting, be waiting staff, they said, no, we're just looking for entertainers now. And I said, get your guitar out. And they said, yeah, go on then, give us a song. And we sang, I think it was Proud Mary. And they said, yep, you're on.
Wow.
We were like, oh, really?
Because there's a lot of artists have had a gig doing that. I know the Seekers certainly found their way to the UK that way.
Yeah. I mean, it was, here I was, a 20-year-old, no money, and I was, travelling on a cruise ship going to Gibraltar and Malta and Egypt. And I was just blown away by it. I couldn't believe that singing, could be such a fantastic career, and I could travel the world for nothing and get accommodated. And I was in. I was like, okay, let's.
Grace, some performers realise at a very young age they've got talent and they work on that. It sounds like you didn't really understand that. Was it that moment when you got your first job that you thought, oh, hang on, I might be okay at this?
No, no, I've never thought I was. I mean, I think I'm okay. I must be okay because all the people that have supported me aren't wrong, So I've probably got maybe, not such a high opinion of myself. But for me, it was more about, this singing lark. I can travel around the world. And if, people will soon let me know if I'm not good enough. they either won't give me a job or they'll sack me. And so I always use that as a backdrop. And I'm still using it today. You know, when people stop coming, it's like, okay, you know, that's the final.
Grace, there's a fair bit of difference between your audition song of Proud Mary and Crazy that we just heard on there. After all these years of singing, where do you think your real, true singing wheelhouse is, where you feel most comfortable?
You know, I think you mentioned it earlier, you know, before we came on air. All of it is my voice, you know, and all of it is my interpretation of the story that I'm telling. And to me, the music that is going on, you know, behind my vocal will dictate where I place the syllables and the emotion, you know, where that emotion might rise and fall. And so I allow the music to dictate that. So if I'm performing with a jazz trio, jazz musicians, their spacing and the gaps that they leave is quite different from rock and roll. And so it really is a case of just listening to the musicians that I'm working with, and it's all my voice, and it's still my interpretation of that story. So I actually don't hear much of a difference.
Because it could be argued, I'm not suggesting this in your case, obviously, but there have been a number of rock and roll singers who have had voices that would not stand up by themselves, that they are part of a cacophony, there's a word for you, Robert, for this time of the morning. Whereas clearly when you're singing a song like Crazy, where you've got some very, very quiet musical backing, the voice has to stand up, doesn't it?
Well, yes, it does. And as I say, I just do what I do, and, you know, I hope and pray that, well, I don't pray, but I hope that it is enough. You know, it's enough. And sometimes I have to work really hard at it until I think that's enough. And sometimes it comes, you know, quite easily. So, yeah.
Well, one of the intellectuals that precedes this program suggested that we might be joined by someone who had a band called the Pips behind them. Your name as an artist was a little bit shadowed by Eurogliders to start with. We ended up knowing who Grace Knight was very soon after that. How did the Eurogliders come about?
Eurogliders came of my sister, as I say, the 10 Pound Pom. She introduced me to Bernie Lynch, who is the songwriter of Eurogliders. And Bernie took a bit of a shine to me. And when he realised I'd sung my passage over from the UK, he dangled a carrot in front of me and said, I'm making a record. Would you like to come and sing backing vocals? And I was just like, a record? Yeah, I'd love to. And so I came and sang backing vocals on his recording. And, of course, he plied me with Stone's Green Ginger Wine, telling me it'd be good for my voice.
Yeah, right, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And not long after that, we, you know, started going out with each other.
I'm so desperately disappointed that you didn't respond to him by saying absolutely. I would have thought that would have been the ideal Euroglider's response to his question.
Yeah. Well, that was a while. It wasn't long after that Eurogliders, who were then called Living Single, you know, became a band, and Bernie asked me to be the lead singer in that band.
And you were singing in Perth at the time, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and so, yeah, the band started off in Perth, yeah.
There's heaps of evidence that coming out of Adelaide is a really good thing to do for your musical career, if you go back over the list of names that have come out of there. Obviously, if you're in Melbourne and Sydney, it's pretty easy to get yourself in front of a Molly Meldrum or whatever. How does a band from Perth get noticed on the national stage?
Well, just excuse me a second. I've got a bit of hay fever.
It's that salt water.
Sorry about that. we persevered and persevered. Luckily for us, in Perth, there were so many venues. There were hundreds of venues, which meant we could perform 4 and 5 nights every week for, maybe 2 years. We became very, very tight as a unit, as a band. And we were pulling more and more people to our gigs. Someone from Polygram came over from the eastern states and, kind of saw how tight we were, saw the reaction from the audience and just was like, yeah, we've got to sign these people. So, and interestingly, we had the first single out called Without You. Then the second single we wanted to release was the song Heaven Must Be There. And the A&R chap from Polygram said, nah, this isn't, this song's crap. I don't want to release it, which was really kind of good for us in the long run because it meant, we said, oh, no, well, we think it is a single. If you're not going to sign it, we then got let out of our contract, which then allowed us to sign up with CBS, which is now Sony Music, and we released Heaven, and the rest is history, and a thumb up the nose to the A&R Polygram.
and of course, Heaven belongs in that very limited genre of music, Rob, where it has parentheses or brackets in the title, because I think it's called Heaven, brackets, must be there, close brackets.
Look, we were always called Eurogliders, but it was impossible for people not to say the Eurogliders. Yeah. And we used to get our noses a bit out of joint, like, we're just Eurogliders. And then, of course, we realised, what are we going on about? Who cares?
Long as you remembered, and people want to go and pay money to watch you,
exactly.
They can call you whatever they like.
Yeah, and so it was just Heaven, and of course we took that on as well, Heaven.
Yeah, and I must say that I'm going back now. My memories are a bit fuzzy as well from the mid '80s, but there was another band came out of the UK that had a bloke and a girl out the front called Eurythmics at the same time, and I seem to remember very early days thinking, "Hang on, is this Eurythmics or Eurogliders?" Very similar names.
Yeah. Actually, we were Eurogliders before the Eurythmics.
Excellent.
Because I remember when we were Eurogliders, Bernie and I went to see them in Perth at a pub called the Herdsman, and they were called the Tourists then.
Yes.
And then, of course, which, like us, they then changed their name to Eurythmics. But we were Eurogliders before they were Eurythmics. Not that means anything.
I think the other thing that's one of those trivia questions, I think I'm right, in fact, in saying that Annie and David split from the Tourists to create Eurythmics.
That's correct.
And they did that in a hotel room in Wagga Wagga.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm not surprised to hear that. I'm not at all surprised because, they were a great partnership, like Bernie and I.
Yeah.
We've been, Eurogliders has had many, many incarnations with different musicians, but it can only ever be Bernie and I.
Yeah.
That are Eurogliders.
Yeah, absolutely. So fast forward through the Eurogliders a little bit because we all know about them. You've obviously done a lot of jazz work since then, a lot of solo work. But then up she pops again, Eurogliders. How does it happen that you say, righto, now's the time to have a stint back together with Bernie and doing a tour as Eurogliders?
That started because of Glenn A. Baker. He called me out of the blue and said, would Eurogliders consider getting back together again to do a tour with the Boomtown Rats? And that would have been maybe 10, 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't know, I'll speak with Bernie and I'll get back to you. I had a chat with Bernie and, it was a national tour. So, it's expensive to put a band together and to book a studio and rehearse that band and pay the band for rehearsal. So, it's a business as well, being a performer. It's not all, we can't live on love alone or loving our art. We need to, pay our rent too. And we did the math and said, yeah, let's do it. And so we put a band together. Then the Boomtown Rats tour fell over, and here we were with a band that was all rehearsed, ready to go. We'd spent all that money preparing for it, and it was like, well, God, now what do we do? So we just went out ahead and started touring ourselves.
Okay.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about why you're coming to Geelong in a moment, but the Eurogliders again going to be doing some shows later this year.
Yes.
Sorry, Eurogliders, not the Eurogliders. Sorry, my mistake.
Thank you. The Eurogliders will be touring back in September, October. My poor dear friend and the person I absolutely love, Bernie, has been diagnosed with throat cancer.
Oh, that's no good.
No, it's not good at all. And he has a very, very good prognosis.
Excellent.
They've caught it very early. So he's going through a 7-week course of radiation and chemotherapy at the moment. He's in the second week of it. It's not pleasant, but it's working. And so we're hoping that, after this 7 weeks and give him, months of recovery, that we'll be back on the road doing what we love together.
Excellent. Well, in the meantime, this is going to be the revelation as to why we played Wendy Matthews a little bit earlier. Wendy and yourself are doing a tour at the moment called We're Going to Graceland.
Yeah. Look, Wendy and I have been talking about this for, I was going to say decades. It might not be decades, but years. Wouldn't it be great if, wouldn't it be great if? And of course, we never got round to it. We were both busy working, doing our solo shows, and I was doing Eurogliders as well. And one day we sat down and said, right, we have got to commit to this. Otherwise, life will just pass us by and we'll never do it. Let's lock it in and start working on this. And Paul Simon, the songwriter, was just like, for both of us, one of the most beautiful songwriters that had hit after hit after hit after hit for generations. And it was like, we wanted to do, we didn't want to do each other's songs. It was like, no, let's just do something that has nothing to do with anything. Like it's, completely separate to both of us. And that's why we chose Paul Simon. And the thing is that the audience goes, oh, I didn't know that I knew that song. And they do it with almost every song we sing. So it's so joyous, this show, that I'll have to whisper it. We would almost do it for nothing. It's thrilling. And Wendy and I get off stage and we give each other a big cuddle and go, oh my God, that was so much fun. And because there's no real pressure on us. I think the fact that we're neither of us solo artists, we're a duo, doing this show together. It's just immense fun. And finally, I'm so happy and thrilled to be working with great musicians, brilliant songs, and of course the audience recognise almost all of them. There's a few curly ones thrown in there just because we want to sing them. But for the hour and a half or the hour and 15 minutes that we're on stage, it's absolutely joyous.
Well, I saw some footage of it, and that would be absolutely the description I would give. It just looks like two mates standing up on stage having a great time.
Yeah.
Grace, there's a commonality with the wonderful opportunity we've had to interview many guests of your ilk, Australian music icons, and what I notice, and has come through again, is the respect and admiration that you have for each other. It's like a big family at the back of the industry that we don't get to see, but there's clearly no competition or jealousy. You just love and admire and respect each other.
Oh, no. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel quite privileged to be working with Wendy. You know, I love Wendy's voice. She's an incredibly talented performer, a singer and songwriter, and she's my pal. And, you know, and I just look at her and I feel quite privileged to be there and privileged to be still doing a job as this is our job. I feel so privileged that Australia has, you know, gifted me with such an incredible life. I'm just completely amazed, and
Have you been able to take your skills now back to where it all started in Manchester and perform at some of those clubs where you kicked off back in the 70s?
No.
Is it something you'd like to do?
No, it's not. It's not something I aim for. I'm really happy in Australia. I have toured around, you know, the globe with Eurogliders, and that was very, you know, successful for us. And we had, you know, small chart success in America and UK, and all of that was great. But I'm close to the end of my career. I'm really, really happy and content to finish my career in Australia.
Well, we're very pleased that you are here. Now, we do need to give out some dates, and I did go back. This will shock Rob. I did a little bit of research this week, and one of the things I found was an interview that you did with Larry Emder and Kylie Gillies on the morning show. It must have been 10 years ago, I reckon, and they asked you for some dates. You pulled a piece of paper out and said, "Oh my God, I haven't brought my glasses." So I'm going to read the dates out for you, just so that we don't run into that. You are going to be at Traralgon on the 11th of April, which is Thursday night, so you better get back from Sydney in a hurry.
Hang on, is that with Eurogliders?
No, this is the Wendy Matthews and Grace night, according to your website.
No, Traralgon on the 11th of
April.
Really?
That's what it says on your website.
In my calendar, I'm not sure.
Oh, well.
Better give Wendy a ring, Grace.
See if she's available. Well, you may or may not be at Narre Warren on the 12th. Ballarat on the 13th. Does this make sense?
Is that Gippsland?
Yeah, Gippsland. Sorry, Traralgon, Gippsland, yes.
Thank you.
So she has got her glasses.
Yeah,
okay.
she's from Perth. She's excused.
I'm feeling a bit better about myself now. So the 12th, which is Friday, he's doing his maths, Narre Warren, the Bunjil Place facility in Narre Warren. Then next Saturday night, Wendouree in Ballarat. The 14th of April in Bendigo, and then you take a bit of a break. The 16th of May in Wodonga, the 17th of May in Swan Hill, the 18th of May in Shepparton, and here's the big one, the 19th of May in Geelong at the Geelong Arts Centre. Now, you can get tickets for all this and find out everything you need to know. And I'm telling you this, Grace, in case you need to check the dates, at gracenight.com.au. And according to the website, the Eurogliders at the moment, depending upon obviously Bernie's health, September onwards from there.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for questioning you about Traralgon. I've got it as Gippsland, and that just shows you how pathetic my geography is.
No, I like the warm embracing of all of Gippsland, despite the fact you'll be actually in Traralgon. That's okay.
Well,
just as long as you're not sitting on Sydney Harbour on Thursday night, that'd be good.
But I think what I'd like to say is, look, you know, the music industry is really struggling. We're going through a really, you know, sort of funky stage at the moment. And it really, really helps us when, you know, people go out and book the tickets, because that's what keeps us going. It keeps our musicians paying their rent and feeding their kids. And so if I could just thank the people that have bought those tickets and are coming to see us, it really means a lot to us, and we really, really appreciate it.
And I absolutely can tell you that I saw some of the footage of obviously shows that you've done with Wendy in the past, and it just strikes me that it's going to be a great night out. There's no other way of putting it. And we're talking $80 for a ticket. I mean, that is a joke. It should be, twice that price, and you're going to see two world-class artists for $80 in your hometown. Get there.
Well, it's a long travel to get there, so we're really looking forward to it.
And you even get a bit of bonus with Taylor Sheridan being your support.
There you go.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than this, does it? So make sure you check it out, gracenight.com.au. Grace, what an absolute thrill and joy it's been to chat with you this morning on the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Thank you to the two blokes.
Thanks, Grace. Best wishes.
All
Talk
the
to you.
best.
Lovely. All the best to you, and have a great day to your listeners too.
Thanks, Grace. Grace Knight there, live from Sydney Harbour. My goodness gracious me, she sounds like a really nice person, doesn't she?
Absolute ripper, and again, ridiculously modest and humble, and just goes around doing what she loves, and if it makes people happy, well, that's a bonus, but she's no pretentiousness about that lady.
And we should have said this to her, we can't wait to see you.